Welcome back everybody. In this video we'll be discussing how you can make your games accessible to people with color blindness. I am fortunate enough to not suffer from color blindness, but I am thinking about it in my games for the future. So we're just going to quickly talk about, this website. This is made by a guy called David Nicholas here. And he has made this website that uses maths to basically show you what color blindness might look like. It's not obviously perfect, but it does. It's a representation, right? We can play around with these color values here, and we can see what changing the hues and the actual colors due to color blindness and things you can avoid in your own games, or whatever you're going to be using this knowledge for. So if we have a look at this, we can see that these two colors, despite looking very different to someone with normal vision, look quite similar to someone with this condition here. I'm not going to try and pronounce these because I know I'll just get it wrong. But you can see they each are representing a different type of color blindness. Okay, so if we mess around here, so if I create an orange and I try and create a green, this is how it began. I was thinking about making a game with orange and green as the main colors. And I was thinking about color blindness for some reason. I found this website, and look, this orange and green look almost exactly the same. And I'm actually learning quite a lot about color theory in this as well. How a hue actually changes the brightness, so to say. Like normally you would think that every color would be on, has the same, saturation and same brightness value. And so you would assume that by changing the color, all you're doing is changing the color, and that the brightness and the saturation would be staying the same. But you can actually see that people with color blindness don't perceive it like that, and neither do we really. Like, for example, this blue is a lot darker than this blue here, even though they're at the same space on this color wheel thing. So you can see the difference that is created by sliding this slider. Like, as you can see, this is a red now, and this is a green, and yet these two colors are identical. And obviously they aren't identical here, but that is not the point. The point is to, I'm trying to think about making my games accessible to people with all kinds of color blindness. And if one isn't colorblind, if I'm only catering to these individuals here, then it's not really a win, is it? So as you can see as well, this blue and this green are very identical as well. So I can tell the difference between these. So can somebody with this kind of color blindness, but this one cannot. And there's a lot of information on this website that tells you about the stuff, and also encourages you to read the Wikipedia about different kinds of color blindness. But it also down here, it also gives you some examples of accessible palettes. And with those, that information that we talked about of the red and green, for example, this is it right here. It's saying that they might not be able to tell the difference between those two colors. It just looks like a lighter shade of whichever color, so it encourages you to try and use some magenta, so the blue actually is able to be shown the difference. And there's even some palettes here that are meant to be color accessible. So you can see here almost all of the colors are completely separate. I would say that these three don't stand out enough, and this orange and this yellow could be more different, but I guess the idea is you're meant to use them wisely. You're not meant to just forget about it. It would be great if I could find a website that you put in your image and then it gives you the outcome like it does here with the palettes, but of the image itself. I haven't found that yet, but I would love to test with something like that. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you my games that I've made, and we're going to think about how we would make them more accessible. So obviously I make my games in GB Studio, and these are the four colors that GB Studio uses. And obviously it's just the Game Boy, and the Game Boy only uses 4 colors, and it's just like a grayscale of green. So I have some games that use that. So obviously this is one, for example, Take It Racing. And if we look at the color blindness values for this, it's very simple because it's basically the same hue, and then it just changes the darkness and the saturation, right? So this one is obviously very simple. It just goes from light to dark, which is arguably the most accessible you can have because it's just brightness, really. Obviously, this one, you can see, does change hue, but the differences are very drastic, which is fantastic. We move on to this game. If you remember, this one is called Hackar, and it has predominantly red and blues, and obviously then grays in the background. So if we think about this color palette, then you can see that the blue does stand out as a different color, and the red kind of changes. Obviously, these are more like pinks, these unsaturated colors here, which means that this, red does stand out as more of a brown, and this one here does definitely stand out. But this blue kind of blends in with the black. If we have a look back at here, it means that this puddle or whatever, or even this blue here, would fade into this, would fade into the text, right? So luckily the text itself is white, but the background of it is the dark, and this blue might fade into that, which is very interesting. I'm kind of glad I'm learning about this stuff. Okay, if we move on to this game, Dead Dungeon, it's predominantly reds, but also some, grays and whites. And if we go through here, then there are also some green enemies. So let's have a look about how that works. So obviously the grays are, just the values again, and arguably these values aren't different enough. Somebody with just low sensitivity or whatever, may not be able to differentiate them as easily. And the bad thing about this artwork as well is that this red and this lighter red, there's no barrier. It's just the two colors touching. If I was to have a shadow or something or a pattern on this wall, it might make it, more readable. And at the very bottom here, it does talk about going beyond colors, where you should try to use more than just color, right? So using symbols or patterns, and obviously anything else you can think of to make it so that the viewer doesn't have to rely on the color. If you've ever been in school and the teacher, prints something in black and white that was meant to be in color, and it just completely is unreadable, I think this is the reason why. The person was relying on the color to bring across the information, and then when you strip that color back, it doesn't stand up, right? So if we, think about this and we try and bring it down to this, if we really remove the color from it, then it might not actually be any different from this gray. And obviously that isn't really on this, but for example, dogs, I don't think they see color, but obviously dogs aren't playing our game. But maybe you're making a game for a dog, and then you have to think about stuff like this, which is another interesting task. But yeah, let's move on to my next game, which is Office Combat. If you remember this one, I tried to make it office colors, so it's the blue and orange, but it's like a faded orange and a very bright blue, and obviously a lighter blue as well. And arguably the characters will be the things that are, the most important. So they have black hair and then white top. Very obvious. So whichever background they're on, they will stand out, hopefully. And then the skin is a light pinkish or yellowish. So yeah, let's look at these colors. So the white is obviously just pure white, and then these are shades, but as you can see, they don't stand out very much. This is the skin color, and this is the background color. They might not be exactly the same because of, how I color picked and whatever, but we can at least see the fundamentals of it. This light blue is the most interesting because I can obviously tell its difference between this one quite easily. But if you actually think about these two colors, they're only slightly different here, mainly because of the saturation is ripped from them. And obviously these two definitely stand out, but this one as well is quite interesting. It kind of goes from blue to greenish, and comparing these two colors, you can see how these, different color blindnesses actually work. And it's kind of eye-opening that, the world I see isn't the world that everyone else sees, right? And it's kind of making me think about the values of color more. It's really interesting. Yeah, I recommend you guys go and look at this, go and test it out, read some information. Yeah, I'll put my patrons up on the screen right now. Thank you so much to you guys. I've recently got a new mic, so please tell me what you think. If you guys have any suggestions, I'd love to hear them. Let me know what you thought of this video and what you'd want to see in the future. I hope this was interesting, and if you have color blindness, then please let me know your experiences with playing, indie games especially, which obviously don't have the huge teams of people to think about this stuff as their job. Yeah, remember to like the video if you like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.